Shopify Masters is powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. To get an extended 30-day trial, visit shopify.com/masters.
When we are coming up with the kit, it's to keep it as almost as general as possible to target as wide of an audience as possible, you know.
Hey, my name is Felix, and I'm the host of Shopify Masters. Each and every week, we'll learn the keys to success from e-commerce experts and entrepreneurs like you. In this episode, you'll learn how to create product kits for your business, how to set customer expectations when you're shipping from multiple vendors, and how to find and evaluate writers for your store's blog. Today I'm joined by Chris and Vi from Stealth Angel Survival. Stealth Angel Survival is the premier site to find essential outdoors, camping, hiking, adventure, and survival equipment. And we started in 2017 and based off Los Angeles. Welcome, Chris and Vi.
How's it going? Hey, Felix, how are you?
Good. So where did this idea come from?
We've been kind of, we have a little bit of a background in the outdoors. So we were kind of looking at different types of verticals, looking at, what we could do as far as, these types of products are concerned. We had kind of looked at, a lot of guys out there, different types of products they're selling. We just had a need for it ourselves, especially when it comes to someone like like a package type of product or a kit type of product, which is emergency stuff. Yeah. So it's mainly like, we wanted to put together kits, because,
right.
A lot of people don't really know what they need, what to purchase, so they end up piecing together things that don't make sense. Kind of. So we came up with the idea to have some pre-made kits for people to purchase for from hiking to emergency situations to anything like that.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you had experience in outdoor space already. Was this like hobbies, or did you guys work in the space already?
No, maybe just hobbies. But this was one where, we kind of coupled the hobby with, the business really and the next level.
So you guys have started businesses in the past?
Yeah, we have.
Got it. Now, you mentioned that when you were looking around for something to get into, it sounded like you guys were, had time or had the energy and all the other business that you're creating to focus on this particular industry. What did you see in the marketplace that made you recognize that there was opportunity for you guys to get in there?
Yeah, so one of the main things we kind of saw was that, a lot of the brands out there were very kind of specific in what they were doing, so we looked at some competitors. So let's say there were like, survival type items or tactical gear. Like people were very, very kind of specific. So either geared towards like, let's say clothing or specifically like, let's say hiking or
too general.
Yeah. They were kind of like, it's either like a big five type of competitor or somebody that's very, very, very specific on something, So we would run into, tactical, let's say, clothing sites that would only do just gear, and they wouldn't provide some of the tools. Or, you would run into, like a general store that had just about everything that, you can't really, pick what you want, what you need. So we kind of saw, wide variety of stuff. And a lot of the products that we were like researching, we didn't see a lot of these guys carrying. So, it's kind of how we got into it.
Yeah, so you guys have had the hobby in this space, but it's kind of spawns a couple of things, right? It sounds like there's of course outdoors camping, adventure, gear for people to go out on hikes and go camping. But then a big portion of it in the name of your business is around survival equipment. So tell us a little bit more about how these two almost into two different. At least to me, they're very adjacent interests. People that might be into hiking might also be interested in survival gear, but it's still kind of two different demographics or interests. How did you guys know to tie these two together?
Yeah, so that kind of came about just by listening to our customers. Really, we would have people buying, certain gear and then asking for something complimentary. But then what we noticed was a lot of people were kind of like you said, like it's a little bit related because, if they're buying, let's say, a hiking type of product, that could also, well, in many cases, it could be used for a survival type scenario, So we would see like, the people that were really kind of prepared or were enthusiasts in that, hiking or outdoors or things like that were often, prepared as well for an emergency type situation, So, off the bat, it doesn't seem like they go hand in hand, but when you think about it, as far as the products are concerned, they're very complementary to each other.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So you guys saw that there was room in the middle, right? You recognized that either companies or other businesses were too niche. They served only one small purpose, or they were too general and they weren't specialized in the target market that you're going after. So you saw room in the middle. I think you mentioned in my research that you guys started with just one product and grew from there. And like you were saying, you were listening to your customers. What was that one product that you started with?
Yeah, so the one product was the 8-in-1 Stealth Angel kit that we have, and the reason why we kind of chose that to start with was, number one, it was very affordable, a good starter product, but at the same time, that kit it has so many unique items in it that we've had even the hardcore enthusiasts just buy it just to have, just because it's so cheap and it has so much stuff in it that they could just throw around and cars or give it to people or whatever it is, So it was almost like a product that covered several bases that allowed us to get off to a good start.
Mm-hmm. And when you were growing the catalog and you're choosing your next products, you mentioned that you're listening to customers. So was this just kind of passively through customer service emails, or nowadays, or even back then, what were you doing to make sure that you really had an ear to your customers, you really understood what they wanted next?
Yeah, so man, we really, really got into it. We were looking at, between the two of us, pretty much every single email, every single Facebook post, Instagram post, Twitter, you name it. We were just, we spent a lot of time just reading and listening, It's like, it's one of those things where, you have to know what's going on, especially when you launch a new product, it's like, it might be a great idea to you, but once it's out in the marketplace, you really have to keep, your eyes and ears wide open to see what people are saying, So we've been doing that. Pretty much every single product that we have is, we'll do our testing on our end, go through several, phases of giving it to close friends, people to test out, to use, to do all that until we introduce it. But once we do, we really, like to keep our eyes and ears open to see what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Approximately how large is your catalog today?
The catalog today, we have about 100 different SKUs that are items that we house ourselves, that we own the inventory to. And then we also have, I don't know the exact number, but we have quite a large selection of items that we drop ship.
Mm-hmm.
Over 400. Over 400 at least items that are drop shipped. And that's using, some of the Shopify apps, to link up with, people in our space to basically offer their products as well and their SKUs as well.
Yeah, I like how you complement your own products with dropship products, and to some degree, or like you're saying, drop shipping has even larger or more SKUs in your entire catalog. How do you manage this? How do you manage having both your own products and also dropship products? Is there a workflow that has helped you guys?
Nothing too specific. It's a little bit tough to answer that one, to be honest. We look at, our fulfillment center, which is our own. We go through the orders, segment out, what's ours, what's not. You have situations sometimes where, a customer will buy your product coupled with the dropship items. So you have, two separate shipments going to them. But yeah, the workflow is pretty basic. Our fulfillment manager goes through it. Sees if we need to ship it or if we need to submit the order to the drop shipper to ship for us, and we just kind of go from there.
Now, how do you decide which products you should hold as your own inventory versus products that you should just continue to drop ship?
Right. So one of the ways is since we were starting out kind of fresh, some of the like branded type of products, it takes a little bit of time to become like a whole retailer or reseller of them. So we would see things that were branded and that, these were things that we had used or knew the brand or had friends that had used it or whatever the situation was. And we decided to add those, in our catalog through the drop shippers that were offering them. So it's mainly like the branded type of stuff that we started drop shipping.
And we also order some like Lifestron stuff like that. Like
yeah. So yeah, and even with some of the branded stuff, we have some. We also hold some of that inventory ourselves. I guess to kind of summarize it is just how easy can we get a product versus just kind of offering one that's out there that's established and might not be available to everybody.
Got it. So if it's something that you could easily procure yourself, you'll go with that. And if you can offer some value to a customer by presenting them with a product that you found that you can drop ship, you would do that. Whatever is such easiest to get to the customer.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned that the both of you were spending a lot of time poring over social media, reading everything to get feedback from your customers and understand what they want next. But you can't take everyone's advice, right? Everyone has something that has an opinion, and you just won't be able to act on everyone's thoughts on what you should include in your site. So how do you decide the kind of priority of what you should rank high in terms of a product that someone is mentioning versus something that you might, kind of throw into the backlog and come back to later?
Yeah, that's it's kind of, I don't know, coming a little bit from that space. I guess part of it is just intuition, like just thinking, would I buy this? If somebody's talking about it, like, does it make sense? Is it a good fit for us? Where, can we develop something like this? Can we brand out something like this? Or are we just going to be, kind of chasing our tails with, a random product that doesn't really, just, have that ring to it,
Right.
It's, I'd say a lot of it is just kind of just knowing the space a little bit and just, hearing from consumers and knowing what type of consumers we have to say, hey, I think we could sell this versus, I don't know if this one would fly,
Yeah. Have you ever been surprised by something that you heard of customers asking for, and then you never even considered adding it to your catalog? So I'm assuming since you're in the space and you are, selling these kind of products, you must see a lot, or must at least have an idea of all the possible things you can add to your store. But has anyone ever made a suggestion that you guys were like, wow, I never thought about adding that, and then it was actually successful?
No, I don't think so, man. No, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. That you probably already kind of have an idea of the entire catalog, but obviously you want to be selective and go with what customers are actually demanding.
Yeah, well, some of the stuff I'll tell you is, there have been certain suggestions on products that, we've wanted to add, but we've just had limitations in doing so, just based on, the type of marketing we do and things like that. For example, we have a big community of people that want, like, everything from like collector knives to like switchblade type of items and things like that. And we just, we haven't added it to the site just because of, the different avenues of our marketing spend and where we, buy media and all that kind of frown upon certain things like that, So we've stayed away from that just to not get caught up in, accounts being banned or advertisements being banned and things like that. But yeah.
Right. That makes sense. Now, you guys have, like we mentioned, your own inventory. You also do drop shipping. And I think other entrepreneurs out there that even might just do solely drop shipping, they will have, like you mentioned, you'll have shipments coming from different vendors, right? People that are shipping from in your case, your warehouse versus the drop shipper shipping the product from there. Now, how do you communicate this to customers to set their expectations when there are different shipping times and they might in their head imagine that it's all coming from the same business, but it's being drop shipped in one case versus coming straight from your warehouse? Do you have to communicate this? Have you found a good way to communicate this to your customers?
The one way we do it is just through like the email confirmations when we can. Now that we can't always do that, but that's the best way we do it. And if it's a certain dropship item, or if we know that an item is going to be really delayed because of the dropship program or something, a scenario like that, we'll give them a heads up. But yeah, really, we haven't found a great way, I would say, to do that.
Do you find that customers typically care, or has it been an issue?
It hasn't been too much of an issue. But yeah, sometimes they do actually. If people are, listeners are looking to do this, sometimes people do just because, when let's say you upload a tracking number, they get an item and, only part of it is delivered. A customer will think, there's an error and, they'll contact you saying, hey, the tracking shows delivered, but I only got half my order,
right.
Something along those lines. The best way that I'll tell you we do it is because we ship our own product, in almost every circumstance, we know our own product is shipped quicker than the
right.
drop shipper. What we'll do is actually when we print like the shipping label, the insert, we'll notify them in that insert. So we'll stamp that shipping label inside the package, and we'll say, this item will be shipped to you separately, or it's coming separately, or something along those lines. So at least we kind of know that if they get our product first, which is most cases, when they open it up, they'll see, the insert, and they'll say, hey, this part of the order was shipped separately, should get to you pretty quickly.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, how are you guys able to? I can understand like you had a big customer base at a certain point to listen to understand what products add to next, and that's like the best kind of product, the best kind of market research you can get because you're now you have so much data about how to make your business decisions. But when you're starting off, well, first of all, how did you kick this entire business off the ground? How were you able to get your first 100 customers?
Yeah, so the first was basically, when we got the product that we kind of decided to launch, we first initially started with, Facebook ad campaigns. Then, slowly kind of started testing out other ad networks to see, where we get traction from, where we don't. But yeah, to answer your question, basically the first sale came from a Facebook advertisement for us.
Got it. So these were the ads featuring the 8-in-1 kit?
Yeah, the 8-in-1 kit. We made several banners. We actually photographed the product ourselves. We created videos ourselves. Really from ground up is how we got that one going. That kind of led into all the other stuff.
Yeah. Now, what's your approach back then and today too, if it's different towards how you set up your ad campaigns on Facebook?
It's larger.
Yeah.
I'd imagine.
We made our ads a little more general. Before we used to target more specific to like people who are outdoors and survival and stuff like that. And then as time went on, we started going more and more general and just growing it out that way.
Got it. Because at this point, you're just trying to reach more people into kind of the top of your funnel to just build the brand. Like, what's the idea behind making the ads more general?
It's pretty much to build a brand. So like, even if they're not interested in that one specific product, then we have our remarketing go out and pitch them other products if they weren't interested in that one. So that's why pretty much we're going more general now that we have more products.
Right, makes sense. So this 8-in-1 kit that you guys put together, was this procured from multiple suppliers, or like talk to us about how you put this kit together?
Yeah, so we had seen something similar to this in different areas that we were looking. We actually had to modify this one, so we got something that was kind of in the market and made our own modifications to it. And, one of the key things that we had to change with this, like it goes back to what I was saying before is, it had a little, like a switchblade type of knife that we had to take out. And then, as we were selling it, you do need to find some of the items separately, So what we did is we kind of, started with that. Then we made a 9-in-1, then, 10-in-1. Now we're making different ones. And yeah, you need to source it from multiple areas, multiple places. Depending on what you want to put in it. But yeah, it started with one, kind of dumbed it down, and then revved it up again.
Yeah, I'd imagine that this approach of creating kits Makes a lot of sense, right? For you're doing it for different purposes, right? You have it for the camping, there's survival. Like you can create kits for lots of different purposes for your site. So I can imagine that other businesses and other industries can take the same approach and create kits of products. Now, how do you decide what to include in a kit? Like what kind of questions do you ask yourself, or do you ask customers to decide what should be included in that kit?
Yeah. So first thing we do is pretty much, come up with a scenario, kind of like, all right, is this thing for outdoors? Is it for, an emergency? Is it, what is this really for? So you'll kind of have some boundaries on, what makes sense to include and what not to include. But most importantly, when we are coming up with the kit, it's to keep it as almost as general as possible to target as wide of an audience as possible, So, we've seen a lot of like specialist kits out there, and, there's some guys in our space that kind of do like monthly programs and things like that. But, we figure, you start with something very, very broad and then slowly, come down and modify it to like an enthusiast level,
Does that mean you offer multiple kits then, or what does it mean to have something general and then more specialized?
Yeah. So, for example, I'll give you an example for the 8-in-1 kit. Is we developed the very first one, and as we kind of went along, we've seen some people they want something a little bit bigger, a little bit more thorough or more items in it, which leads to a higher price point, but they want a little bit more in the same kind of compactness, so. It's you get feedback from people saying that, hey, I could use a signaling mirror. Why doesn't the kid have it? That's a great addition to it. Or I'm looking for the different type of carrying case because I want it on me at all times. Things like that. You kind of when you build it general, you get some of the feedback that makes you think like, hey, maybe we should have this version of it, or maybe we should have a more thorough one, or more expensive one, or something a little bit less bulky. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So I'm not sure exactly in the case in your industry. In other industries, other categories, it often seems like the highly advanced people that are in the space, highly advanced customers, typically stay away from kits, and they want to kind of pick and choose and specialize and make their own choices. Do you find this is similar in your business, where it is more attractive towards beginners, like these kits, versus the more, I guess, advanced expert level kind of customers?
Right. So when it comes to like the camping or outdoors types of kits, that's true. However, at the same time, a lot of those types of customers also buy it for, friends, relatives, family members that might not be into this field as much. So we see that there. But as far as like, let's say the emergency type of products, emergency kits and things like that, those ones we don't get too much, too many customers that are the enthusiasts or
right.
Kind of in that category. They're more of like the prepper type of crowd.
Do you also make the individual items available as well that can be purchased separately from the kits?
Yeah, for sure. We always do that. It's an extra item. It's on its own. It's might be priced a little bit higher. It kind of makes the kit actually look a little bit more of a better value. But
right.
You never know. Sometimes people want, they get one item in the kit, they like it. Like our pens are very hot. People see it, they're like, oh, might as well pick up a few more, have it laying around the car, or give it to a family member, or what have you.
Mm-hmm. And now that you're building larger and larger kits with more individual items, what kind of new challenges come into play when you do start building larger kits of products?
Yeah, so that's a good question, man. It's kind of when you start doing that, you have to kind of go for, I guess, more of an advanced product, which could be a little bit sometimes harder to source, or requires a little bit more investment, or, something along those lines. But yeah, when you start building bigger kits, it's just more moving parts. But at the same time, it's still, useful to have, to offer, just because, you just have an additional, kit, you're going to get an additional customer or somebody more advanced or somebody that wants, something bigger. But yeah, just sourcing and finding the right product is what gets, kind of tricky,
Right. So you guys started this business only last year, 2017, but have had a lot of success. Can you give us an idea of how successful the business has grown to today?
So the business, it grew from, about, I believe we were around $20,000 a month in sales and revenue.
The first month.
Yeah, first month to it's just a little bit over the seven-figure mark now in revenue, monthly revenue, split up by, and it's not only necessarily just the website. That's another thing that I would kind of, tell other listeners to get into, is to look at other avenues of, selling your product, really, whether it's through wholesale channels or retail channels or things like that, but that's kind of where we stand now. And it's just continually growing, man.
Yeah, that's certainly tremendous growth. Now, can you tell us a little bit about a time where you were, this is kind of a two-part question. Tell us about a time where you were most terrified during the growth, the creation of this business. And then also tell us a time where you felt like you were most on track and felt like we are actually doing this, we're succeeding.
Yeah. So I guess the first part, one of the kind of scarier times was when a lot of the disasters happened over the summer. We noticed a lot of, uptick in orders. People were kind of, the atmosphere or the environment around us was kind of like, people were, coming to the site almost, I wouldn't say to be saved, but to, kind of stock up on things and be prepared for, the next hurricane that was coming. And then this was like back to back to back. You had, natural disasters. So that was a little bit scary in that, it's almost as if you kind of take somebody's, mind off of being prepared by offering these types of products. But at the same time, you need to be able to ship and deliver these things on time, because some of these people were really affected by what was happening, and a lot of suppliers at that time were constrained with their inventory because, everyone was just in a frenzy to be prepared, So we had kits that we were, shipping out that were in some cases late because they contained certain items that were kind of allocated to areas that were going through several disasters. For example, like, in our emergency kits, there was a shortage of food and water in a lot of places, and not necessarily because they were selling out, but just because a lot of suppliers were just, kind of, they were selling, but at the same time they were helping, donating a lot of items and this and that. And, I'd say that was kind of a pretty scary time, just because people are relying on you, and, it's kind of up to you to, make sure they get their orders on time,
Right. And what about a time where you guys felt like you had I think as an entrepreneur, you're always feeling like you're barely holding on, but what has been the time where you felt like things were going really well and you felt that taste of success for the first time?
Yeah, I think it's probably right after that rush died down, where, anything was a little bit, better than that feeling of just being scared and all that, but yeah, no, in all seriousness, I think after that rush, kind of when you saw that, all right, we're able to handle this, we made out with that situation in the best way possible, didn't have too many complaints, people were getting stuff on time, we're getting a lot of testimonials and things like that, of people, that actually used it and it was beneficial. That kind of made us, feel a lot more solid about what we were doing.
Mm-hmm. Now, this kicking off your business and churning out, $20,000 of revenue in the first month is a goal that some people want to reach in, a couple of years, but you guys were able to do this in the first year. This was just straight up the back of Facebook ads and video advertising on Facebook?
So this is on pretty much everywhere, man. We started with that, but kind of having businesses before and being involved in things that are similar to this, we we saw that, you really have to kind of cover a lot of ground. You have to basically leave, you can't leave any stone unturned. You have to really try to, reach as far as you can, whether that's kind of how I mentioned before, whether it's online, offline, wholesale type of stuff, even offering, drop shipping type stuff, affiliate type stuff. It was just like, you can't focus on one thing, If you just do one, you're going to be stuck. You got to, you just look at it as you have a product to sell. Now, how are you going to sell it? Like clear your mind and just hit every single angle you can to sell it,
Right. And you think of the typical entrepreneur, typical store that gets created, the focus is typically on Instagram or running Facebook ads. Where do you think that if you could make a suggestion, where do you think entrepreneurs should focus their attention on, where there is opportunity for them to market or get sales that you don't see as many people taking advantage of?
Yeah. So, those obviously are the main ones. Another thing to kind of look at that I think is, possibly a little bit difficult for some to do, but, it would be a lot of like the different search platforms that are always good, especially when you're branding a product. That's one thing that we see some people not really taking advantage of, whether it's paid, whether it's natural search, whether it's, different types of articles that, are kind of more like soft selling type of stuff. Things that are, not necessarily just, something that's very intuitive, for somebody to do. You'd be surprised on what would bring in sales, like just a general, everything from like consistent blog posts bring sales, to, the email marketing obviously is another big one that is very useful. But yeah, like just, those types of sources are always solid.
So you're talking about specifically like SEO for a search engine like Google, and you're mentioning creating blog posts. Now, are these blog posts or the content that you're talking about, these articles, are they being written in-house by you guys, or are you guys working with contractors? Like, how do you build up? Because it sounds like something that takes a lot of time, right? You have to have someone that knows SEO. You have to produce a lot of content. How are you able to do this with a startup essentially?
Yeah, so some of it initially we were writing some of these articles, but yeah, eventually you kind of come up with the idea of what you want to cover, and we would outsource the writing, give them specs on what we want to cover, what it should have, what it shouldn't have, and things like that, and just go back and forth with several different writers, until you find one that you like their style, you like how they speak or come off when you read an article by them. But yeah, it takes a lot of trial and error to find something.
Yeah. Now, do you find that the outsourcing articles performed as well as the work that you guys are putting out?
Yeah. Once we found the correct writer, yeah, it definitely did.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the beginning, not at all, man, because they, you have to kind of find somebody that you're on the same, same page with, so to speak. You'd get, a lot of outsourced writers that are not familiar with terminology that is not, doesn't really resonate with the reader. Versus when you got somebody that kind of knows the space, or even better if you could find, an hobbyist, an enthusiast, even do some, trades with them to write stuff. I know a lot of people starting out are strapped for money, resources, that could work, offering, barter type services, they'll write an article, you give them a product, or, reviewers always contact us. We'll send them a product to get an article in exchange. That works too.
Yeah, and a writer, an outsourced writer, you can find a bunch of them, and I think a lot of because they are writers, because they make their money this way, I think a lot of them, they could potentially sometimes oversell or overpromise what they can deliver in terms of their expertise or the quality of the articles. What do you do these days to see through that, to cut through that, and really understand which writers are legitimate and which ones you can pass on?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of, you test them out and see how the article sounds, what we found that does the best is, you want to read something and you want to feel like someone is just, just normally talking to you, you don't want to, especially if that's the intent, like a blog post, you don't want to sell somebody on it. You just want to offer something to, whether it's an existing customer or a potential customer, somebody to, come onto your site and get something informational that they didn't have before without being overly sold, like you said, So I guess it's just got to kind of read well, it almost has to seem like you're talking to a friend versus a salesman.
So do you give them like a writing project or something? How do you make sure, how do you find out if they are going to be a good fit, good voice for your brand or not?
Man, it's very, very difficult. You really can't off the bat because, like you said, some of these writers do it professionally. It's, you may be presented something or examples of writing from before, but really it's all about just trial and error. You just have to kind of, eat the cost or whatever it is, an article like that, and just, see, how you feel about it, or, you get a couple of sample paragraphs of something, if you could work out something like that, and you'll see, if it makes sense or if it reads right, if it doesn't.
And can you give an idea of what kind of budget we're talking about when you want like a one article written, like how many words or how many words it encompasses and how much it could potentially cost?
Right.
8-9 cents a word.
Yeah, it comes out to about that much, 8 to 9 cents a word, usually, for a pretty good writer, I would say.
Got it. And where are you looking these days to find writers?
We've tried several different sources, but I think the one that we've had the most success with has been Writer Access. It's a pretty good service. We've had, pretty good results with them so far.
Yeah. Now, what kind of direction do you give once you do have a writer that you want to work with, and you guys are ready to produce some content? Like, what do you tell them? Like, what kind of brief or what kind of information do you give them to give them a start on the content?
Yeah. So a lot of ours is of our posts and things like that. We kind of focus on the informational type of articles versus like a story or something like that, so it's pretty straightforward, I would say, because you're kind of telling them, hey, this is, let's say we want to talk about, the items that you need to be prepared for an emergency, what are some essentials, we'll do some research on our end if it's something that's, a little bit more serious. For example, like for our emergency kit type items, we'll do research on a FEMA website, Red Cross, things like that, to see, what are some essentials. Because if you're really, putting this out there, you want it to have some use as well. Like there's a lot of sites you'll see that it's just, pumping out content that is kind of meaningless almost, But, once you settle on a topic, we'll do a little bit of research ourselves and just have, the do's and don'ts, and nothing too specific once you find the right person, But yeah, if the person is not, if you're testing somebody out and this and that, the more specific you are with specs and things like that, the better. But once you kind of have a working relationship with somebody, they already know your style, your site and things like that. And it gets less and less time consuming to work with them.
Makes sense. And yeah, I think you also mentioned that today, other than SEO, one of the effective marketing channels for you is through video advertising. Can you say a little bit more about this? Like what platforms are you buying video ads on?
Yeah, so our main video advertising we buy on is, again, Facebook and Instagram. I would say probably it's one of the more challenging things that we're dealing with now. It's really hard finding a good editor, a good creator of content like that. So that's probably, I don't know, looking at the different sources of marketing that we do, I would say that one's probably one of the harder ones, just because it's really, time consuming. You have to try out different variations and things like that. So it gets pretty difficult. It's one where we do some help for sure.
Can you talk to us a little about your workflow when you guys sit down to create a video ad? Are you creating the raw assets yourself first and then sending to editor? Like, what's the entire process? And once you guys decide, okay, we want to create a new video ad, what are the next steps?
Yeah, so initially what we would do is, we would shoot the raw content ourselves and then come up with kind of, looking at some other advertisements to see how people are doing things, or trying to figure out what the message is that we want to get across. We would develop, a little bit of a, let's say, a storyline, some essential clips for sure that we need. And then we would look at, different texts that we have been using, text that has been performing in the actual advertisements, how to incorporate that, what kind of flow do you want, for the video. It's yeah, there's a lot that's involved in it, really. But, now as we've kind of, developed over time, we try to have the content shot, the raw footage shot, and then, we have an in-house editor that will go through clips. We'll do some ourselves just to see, and try out different variations to see if the beginning of one is working versus the other one. If not, what to change. You change font styles, you change transitions, things like that. It gets very time consuming.
So this is something you guys are doing daily, where you're creating new videos every day?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, we're very, very, very hands-on with, everything that we do with this. So, yeah, all day, man. Coming up with new, different pitches, different content, different photos, it's a daily thing, yep.
Now, for a video ad specifically, is there a recommended length that has worked well for you guys?
No, nothing recommended, but we try to stay in like the 30-second or less time, but nothing too specific,
Right. And do you try to get across specific points or anything, or a specific kind of message in the very first 5-10 seconds?
It's really difficult to do that.
Yeah. I wish we could, but it's very hard to do, man.
Well, maybe you can tell us, what should you certainly include in a video ad? Obviously a video of the product itself, but what other kind of details do you recommend people include in their video ads?
Yeah, it's just mainly, the product itself as a whole, features of it, different types of, angles of the product is always good. Showing, somebody with it, holding it, using things like that are always good. Especially in video, like you have to do things in kind of relative to the environment. So for example, like if I have, a shot of our kit on the ground, let's say, and there's nothing else around it, somebody might think it's a really big kit versus it not being that large in size. So, the more you could show people using it, it's always good.
Got it. And have you noticed a difference between your experience on selling video or putting up video ads on Facebook versus video ads on Instagram?
It's the same.
Yeah, roughly the same. Yeah.
And I want to take a look now about your site itself. So lots of things going on when I first come to your site. You have, I see free shipping. I see under $10. I see a banner that tells me about new products that you've added. What goes into the design of your page? It looks like very purposeful, right? There's certain things that certain messages you want to put across, certain things you want the audience or the visitor to focus on. How did you guys approach creating and designing the site?
That's a permanent banner that, anytime something new is added, people could see that. And then, you have to have, some of the specials that we promote, so like the free shipping, the 10 under 10. So it's basically different, kind of, I would call them almost campaigns that you come up with and to have on the site. And then the other thing you really have to keep in mind is that, a lot of the users are mobile, so some of the stuff is not, not too relevant to those types of users. So some advice to people listening, would be, you really, really have to design for both in mind.
Right.
It's very important.
Now, when I come to the product page, the media reactions I get from looking at a product page is that a lot of focus on trust and building that trust with the customer. Also, some urgency in here as well, and lots of social proof with the reviews. And again, going back to the trust, showing the number of reviews that you guys have. There's the money back guarantee, online support, 24/7, Better Business Bureau accredited. So these are a lot of details. I think it's a great example for someone to go and check out at website StealthAngelSurvival.com. industrysurvival.com of examples of things that you might want to include in your site. Now, what's the thought process behind the product page? Like, how did you guys decide what to include into the product page itself?
Yeah, so these are, they're kind of obvious things that you should have. You always want to have, reviews, as much as you can, good or bad. You want, users to see that, other people have bought from them, other people like this, dislike it. You want it to come across as, being real, the support, very important. People always look at, am I going to get continued support from these guys, or are they just going to take my money and never answer? The BBB stuff is always great, and if you could have any more accreditations like that, that's always a good thing to have. All these improve conversions overall, from the different cards you take to, secure type of site to, the shipping, the reviews, the support. Like, they're very, very key things that, we think you absolutely need,
Right. And I imagine that you have apps to help you power a lot of this. Can you talk to us about that? Like, what kind of applications do you use to help run the business and certainly to have on the site?
Yeah. So we use several different ones. For support, we've been using an app called Reamaze that kind of links everything together. From your Facebook posts to Instagram stuff, so you kind of hear people across the board. Some of the other apps, I'll let Vi kind of give some background on some of the stuff that we use and why.
One of them that the FOMO one is pretty good. The one that kind of shows what other people are buying. We've been using that one.
Yeah, that one is kind of, to expand on it, it's more of like the, like the kind of like not an accreditation type thing, but almost acts as like a review type of thing, to where somebody's on your site, and they're seeing other live users buying things. It just kind of reaffirms, that, hey, other people are shopping here, and this is what they're buying, that's what they're buying. That's been a pretty good Shopify app.
And for the other app, we really don't use too many apps. That's probably one of the only third-party apps that we actually have running on the site itself, other than the review. We use Stamped.io for the actual review instead of just Shopify's own review plugin. It just has more features, but other than that, we really don't use too many apps that run on the site itself.
Got it. So thank you so much for your time, Chris and Vi. So stealthangelsurvival.com is the website. What do you guys plan on what kind of goals you have for this year? You guys are obviously killing it and growing at a very rapid pace. What are some of the key goals that you want to hit on this year?
Yeah, so we, mainly, it's adding new products, new innovative type of products. Some of our, growing out the brand a little bit with our own, proprietary products is one key area that we're focusing on. And then just kind of, expansion into other mediums, really, retail, more of a wholesale angle. Those are really the two key things that we want to get done this year.
Awesome. Thank you again so much for your time.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's a sneak peek for what's in store in the next Shopify Masters episode.
Maybe that means you experiment with some new line of products and you say, I'm going to make the product more expensive, so that will offset the cost of that third free product.
Thanks for listening to Shopify Masters, the e-commerce marketing podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs. To start your store today, visit shopify.com/masters to claim your extended 30-day free trial. Also, for this episode's show notes, head over to shopify.com/blog.